In the heart of a dense emerald-green jungle, far from the noise of civilization, a man had been living all alone for days on end. His name was Ish, a professional biologist whose entire life revolved around research. Miles away from the nearest city, one afternoon while collecting samples under a tree, a venomous snake suddenly struck him on the leg. The pain shot through his body in an instant. In panic, he dropped his phone. All means of calling for help, he tried to suck the venom out of his wound. Then, using a small blade, he attempted to cut the wound and let the poison drain. But unfortunately, time wasn't on his side. The venom was already spreading through his bloodstream, and soon came the terrifying hallucinations. Days began to pass, but he no longer had the strength to speak. Around this time, a group of researchers came looking for him. But when they saw no sign of anyone, they assumed Ish hadn't made it, and they left. But nature, it seemed, wasn't ready to give up on him just yet. The wound on his leg slowly began to drain the poison naturally. Bit by bit, his brain started to clear. Even though the hallucinations would still creep in from time to time, his consciousness was coming back. Holding on to hope, Ish cleaned off his old vehicle and headed back toward the city. But as he drove, he noticed something deeply unsettling. There wasn't a single car on the road, not one person in sight. As he entered the city, the horrifying truth revealed itself. Every house was empty, the streets eerily silent, no signs of life anywhere. And then, it hit him. A deadly virus had swept through the entire city. In just a matter of days, it had wiped out every single person. That's when Ish realized. Maybe the only reason he survived was because he'd been so far away from everyone for so long. Now, there was no one left, no government, no rules, no rights, just him. As memories of his parents flashed through his mind, he rushed to their home, but what he found there shattered him completely. His beloved parents had quietly passed away long ago. Their lifeless bodies still lay inside the house. The sight broke Ish. He collapsed in tears, but somehow, through the pain, he managed to bury them with his own hands, just outside the home they once shared. With tear-filled eyes, he whispered his final goodbye. The next morning, as he looked across the city, Ish finally realized there was no one left alive, not a single soul. This city of the dead held nothing for him anymore. So he set out on a journey to another place, his destination, Las Vegas. With a gun and a few essential supplies, he hit the road. But on the way, a major obstacle. The bridge to Las Vegas was completely blocked off. Frustration boiled inside him, but still, he didn't stop. After a long, painful struggle, he finally made it to Las Vegas. Abandoned casinos, lifeless malls, not a trace of humanity anywhere. Exhausted, Ish wandered into a hotel. That night, he indulged himself. Expensive food, luxurious clothes, but then something happened that night. He saw two strangers, a young woman and a young man. Somehow, they too had survived the deadly virus. The girl told him how she'd watched her entire family die over video call. To her, surviving wasn't a blessing. It was a burden. The guy said he didn't want to keep living in loneliness anymore. Life, to him, had lost all meaning. They stayed with Ish that night. But by dawn, Ish sensed something was off. The guy had a gun, and he had made up his mind. The three of them would leave this world together. But Ish, deep down, he still wanted to live. So, quietly, he slipped away from that place. A little while later, from behind him, he heard gunshots. Several. He knew what that meant. They had chosen to say goodbye to this world. And in that moment, his chest felt completely hollow. There was no one left. He was entirely, utterly alone. The day was just like any other, but Ish's mind was restless. He was driving fast, maybe just trying to escape the silence in his head. Suddenly, he had to slam the brakes. A small puppy had run into the road, trying to cross. That little dog seemed just like Ish, lost and alone. And in that unexpected moment, that tiny pup became Ish's only companion in the world. With that little creature by his side, Ish began a new life. He chose a path now. Every day, he read survival books. Thankfully, he had no shortage of food and money. It didn't matter anymore. Each day, Ish walked the city streets, hoping to find anyone else who might have survived. But every time he came back empty-handed. Suddenly, the dog barked, loud and sharp. Something was wrong. It was clear the dog had sensed another living presence nearby. Ish looked out the window and saw smoke rising from a house far in the distance. Without a second thought, he grabbed his car keys and took off. When he arrived at the house, he saw a young woman inside, her eyes filled with fear. Slowly, Ish stepped forward, trying to reassure her. He told her he meant no harm, that he was just like her, someone who'd been alone for far too long, still searching for someone. The girl finally let him in. Her name was Emma. As they talked, they realized something chilling. It had been an entire year since the pandemic began, and in all that time, neither of them had seen another living person. They both knew this moment, meeting someone again, was nothing short of a blessing. Because being alone wasn't just physically painful, It tore you apart mentally. Humans are social creatures, and loneliness slowly eats you alive. They decided to stay together. Ish's place was ideal, right next to a general store. Plus, he had already stockpiled all the essentials. Emma moved into Ish's home, and little by little, their lives started to feel normal again. Emma helped Ish take care of himself. She encouraged him to dress better, to groom, to feel human again. She even began redecorating the house, and for the first time in a long while, Ish actually cared about how his home looked. Each morning, they'd wake up and work together. Every day had a goal: to build something, clean something, create something. Eventually, they came to a realization: they might be the only two people left alive on Earth, and with that, the responsibility to create new life now rested on their shoulders. At first, they moved forward with the decision together, but suddenly, Ish started to feel afraid. He kept thinking, how would their children survive in this unknown world? Emma reassured him. She told him everything would be okay. Since Ish was a biologist, he began to study childbirth on his own. There was no outside help anymore. They would have to handle everything themselves. Alongside that, they made their home even safer. Ish installed solar panels, making sure they'd never run out of power. But time doesn't stop. The years passed. Trees and plants took over the streets. Abandoned houses slowly turned into overgrown jungles, and the animals of those wild jungles started moving into the city. That's when a new fear crept into their lives. They realized the world outside wasn't safe anymore, so they built a strong fence around their home. Together, they started a new life, a life filled with companionship, a little love, and whatever comforts they could create. They even adopted pets to feel a little more whole. In the stillness of that world, nature began to awaken again. The grass grew greener. The air turned fresh, free of dust, free of pollution. And in that new life, both their bodies and minds began to heal. It was a near-perfect life, but sadly, it didn't last very long. One day, disaster struck out of nowhere. Rats. Hundreds of them spread across the area. To protect themselves, Ish began burning the trash around their home. The fire helped a little, kept the rats away for one night. But they both knew that wasn't a permanent solution. The next day, Emma gently reminded him, we can't be afraid. As long as we're together, we can handle anything. That gave Ish the strength to make a bold decision. At sunrise, he released a group of cats around their home. The cats instantly went hunting, and one by one, the rats began to disappear. Finally, they were free from that nightmare too. Then came an even more important day. Emma went into labor. There was no one around to help, so Ish had to handle everything alone. After hours of pain and effort, Emma held a beautiful baby girl in her arms. Their faces lit up with joy, and in their hearts, a new light of hope was born. They didn't keep their happiness to themselves. Instead, they wrote their address on city streets, just in case someone, somewhere, was still alive. So if anyone ever came across it, they'd find food and water waiting for them here. And just like that, 6 years passed. One day, Ish took the car and headed toward the forest for some work. Suddenly, a wild animal ran out in front of his car. He slammed the brakes, and saw that the animal was still alive but in visible pain, struggling to breathe. To end its suffering, Ish pulled out his gun and put it down. But what he didn't know was a young girl had witnessed it all from a distance. She heard the gunshot and, terrified, took off running into the forest. Ish saw her and ran after her right away, but the look in her eyes said everything. She was scared. She thought Ish might hurt her, but Ish was different. He wasn't chasing to harm. He offered her an apple. Her fear started to fade. She began to realize this man wasn't a threat. He actually wanted to help. Even then, the girl refused to sit inside the car. Instead, she climbed into the trunk and stayed there. When they got home, she still wouldn't come out of it. Meanwhile, time had passed. Ish and Emma now had 2 children, and they were expecting a third. And those messages they had written all across the city, they finally started to pay off. 2 more people showed up, George and Maureen. For the past year, George and Maureen had been living with them. There was food here, water, everything. But that girl from the forest, she was still mentally shaken. She spent every night inside that trunk. The next morning, Maureen brought her some food. The girl flinched and dropped it, scared. So Maureen sat beside her gently and began telling her own story, how she and George had wandered alone for days and days through this empty, post-apocalyptic world. When Maureen spoke to her for the first time, she said, "There's enough here for everyone. You don't have to be afraid. No one's going to take anything from you." That seemed to calm the girl down a little. She started to loosen up, though she still didn't speak much, and she never said her name. Then one day, while looking through the girl's belongings, Maureen found some strange drawings. Among them, there was a letter. It had a name on it, Evie, and in that letter, it was written clearly. Evie's father had treated her horribly during the time of the outbreak. That's why she was now so afraid of people. That's why she couldn't trust anyone anymore. The letter had been written by Evie's mother, for whoever would take care of her, because her mother knew she didn't have much time left. After learning this, everyone became even more careful and compassionate toward Evie. That very night, Emma gave birth to their third child, and the entire family was overjoyed. A year went by. One day they heard that someone had come into their area, and the news scared them. First, they sent the children inside to keep them safe. Then, grabbing weapons, they stepped outside. What they saw was a group of 4 people. They too had come after seeing the address Ish and Emma had left behind. One of them was Dr. Molly. She explained that, all this time, she hadn't met anyone else except these 3 people with her. Now, for the first time, she met Ish's family. From their words and behavior, it was clear. They weren't a threat. So Ish and Emma decided to welcome them in, to make them part of their growing family, because frankly, they had more than enough resources to share, and together, they could build something greater. A real community. Ish clearly explained the rules to the newcomers. To survive in this world now, there are a few things you need to follow. You must always carry a weapon. The world is basically a forest now. Wild animals can attack at any moment, and whenever you go out for supplies, never go alone. Always move as a group. After laying that out, everyone got ready to head out to nearby hospitals and shopping malls to collect whatever they could. As a doctor, Molly gathered all kinds of medicine and medical supplies, things that would become priceless for the survival of their community. Many more years passed. Several new children were born into the group. Other couples had kids too, and the population of their little society slowly started to grow. Ish began teaching his own children what life used to be like before, how people lived, how they survived. They were being taught all of this so they wouldn't fall into trouble in the future. Life had become almost normal again, but around their home, the forest was still thick and untamed. And one day, from deep within those woods, a giant lion wandered all the way to the edge of their home. When Ish saw the lion, he ran as fast as he could to protect the kids. But out of nowhere, the lion turned and attacked him. Its claws tore into his body, and everyone around was thrown into panic. Finally, the others managed to surround the lion, forcing it to retreat back into the forest. Seeing Ish in such a terrible state, Emma, filled with rage and unbearable pain, marched deep into the jungle and shot the lion dead. Soon after, Molly and the others reached Ish just in time. His life was saved. A long and painful treatment process began, stretching over several weeks. Slowly but surely, Ish regained his strength and health. Years passed, 17 to be exact. By now, their children had grown up, and a new chapter in life had begun. Ish's eldest daughter, Heather, formed a close bond with a boy from the same group. No one said anything negative about it, because everyone understood. In this new world, building real human connections was more important than ever. Eventually, Heather and the boy decided to leave the settlement and head out on a journey. They wanted to discover new parts of the world and find out if any other people were still alive. No one stopped them. In fact, everyone supported them, equipping them with the supplies and weapons they'd need for their journey. But soon, a new problem appeared, a water shortage. When they visited the local dam, they discovered it was nearly dried up, and that posed a serious threat to their survival. A few days later, another surviving group entered their territory. They had 2 trucks with them, but they were running low on fuel. They asked Ish for some petrol. In exchange, they claimed they could solve the water crisis because they had a drilling machine that could extract water from underground. At first, Ish didn't trust them, but seeing the situation, he decided to let them join the community, warning everyone to stay alert in case anything went wrong. After days of hard work, the drill finally struck water. The entire community erupted in celebration. The deal had worked out, and Ish gave them the petrol they needed. That night, they celebrated their success. But Ish noticed something strange. The leader of that group slipped out of the house late at night. One of their guards was on watch outside, and he saw that man abusing Evie. The next morning, Ish informed the entire community about what had happened. The situation had suddenly become very serious. Evie said the man told her he had no intention of leaving, because this place had plenty of supplies and weapons. This news terrified everyone. Ish realized the only way to protect their people was to eliminate that man. After long discussions and serious hesitation, everyone agreed Charlie had to be killed, though a few members worried, saying the world's population had become so small that even killing someone like Charlie would be a loss to humanity. But Ish made his stance clear. If we don't kill Charlie, he's going to kill all of us. They planned everything carefully. They surrounded Charlie, and Ish, holding an axe in his hand, ended Charlie's life by suffocating him. Then they buried the body. It was the first time Ish had ever killed someone. Even though it was for survival, a deep sadness settled inside him. The next morning, they explained everything to the rest of Charlie's group, why their leader was no longer alive. They told them he had abused Evie. Surprisingly, many of them were relieved to hear it. They admitted they had always known Charlie had been misusing his power. Some members even said Charlie had hurt them too, so his death felt like a form of liberation. But there was one man, Charlie's closest friend, who became furious over what had happened. Ish stepped forward and said, "You're all welcome to stay here. We have everything we need, but your friend, the one who behaves like Charlie, we can't keep him. He's a danger to all of us." With everyone's agreement, that man was expelled from the group as punishment. At first, he walked away from the community, but once he realized he couldn't survive alone out there, he came back. Still, for the safety of everyone, Ish refused to let him rejoin. Meanwhile, some of the younger members of the community were secretly working on a new plan based on old research. They knew it was just a matter of time before they could launch it. But before that could happen, a terrifying problem hit the community. The virus was back. The same virus that had devastated the world 20 years ago was now spreading again. This time, not everyone had the immunity to fight it. Molly had access to a good stockpile of medicine, and she did everything she could to treat people. But Ish's son fell seriously ill. The news shook the entire group with fear. Then one day, Ish's daughter returned, alone, tears in her eyes. When they asked about her partner, she broke down crying and told them the story of their journey. They had traveled to distant cities, searching for any other survivors, but they found no one. Eventually, they came across a remote, overgrown area, and there, they encountered a man. That man killed Heather's partner, and then he said it was revenge for Charlie. Right then, they understood. This was the same man who had been expelled from their community. Heather told them she had to kill him in order to survive, and then she came back home. Everyone was devastated. The loss of Ish's son broke their hearts. But the tragedy didn't stop there. They lost 3 more members in the following days. Seeing all this, Ish fell into despair. He began to feel like there was no point in staying alive in this world anymore. He just wanted to give up. But that's when Emma, the one who had always stood by him in his loneliest moments, stepped forward once again to lift him back up. She says, "When we first started out, there was absolutely no one. And now look at us. We're a big family. If you give up now, then who's going to teach our kids how to survive?" Emma's words reignite something in Ish. They give him new strength. After that, he climbs up a hill to watch the sunrise. As the light breaks over the horizon, he realizes the old world is gone. Nature has taken on a whole new form now. Ish comes to a powerful realization. He had been preparing his children for a world that no longer exists. Now he has to teach them how to live in this new reality. Back home, Ish speaks to the children. He says, "We tried to live by the rules of the old world, a world that doesn't exist anymore. This is a new world, with new rules, and we're going to learn how to survive in it." He adds, "From now on, you'll learn from nature, what it teaches and what it takes to survive here." Then they start building a new radio system to reconnect the broken lines of communication. It becomes a powerful tool that strengthens their network. Soon, Ish gets actively involved in regular social work. The children slowly begin to understand what it means for people to live together, to truly build a community. And Ish doesn't keep this knowledge to himself. He steps beyond the community, taking part in rebuilding nearby towns. He repairs old hotels and starts laying out plans to improve the surrounding areas. In the film's post-credit scene, we see an elderly Ish sitting with his grandson, telling him this very story. He says, "This world belongs to your generation now. It's your turn to carry it forward."
Hey, Michael, did you finish watching that movie about Ish and his community trying to survive in the new world?
Yeah, James, I just finished it. It was intense. I really felt how hard it must have been for them to start over from nothing.
Exactly. I loved how Ish kept trying to prepare his kids for the old world at first, but then realized that world was gone. That moment when he watched the sunrise and accepted the new reality, that was powerful.
Right, it shows how survival isn't just about fighting, but also about adapting. And the way they built the community together, helping each other, was inspiring.
Totally. And Emma's words to Ish about not giving up because they need to teach the kids to survive, that really stuck with me. It's all about hope and responsibility.
Yeah, and I liked the part where they had to deal with that dangerous leader, Charlie. It was a tough decision, but Ish knew they had to protect everyone else.
True. It showed the balance between mercy and necessity. Sometimes tough choices have to be made for the greater good.
And their efforts to rebuild, fixing hotels, reconnecting communication. It gave a sense that even after disaster, people can create something better.
The ending, with old Ish telling his grandson that the world now belongs to their generation, was a great way to remind us about passing on knowledge and responsibility.
Yeah, it made me think about how important it is to prepare the future generations for whatever comes their way.
Overall, a really meaningful story about survival, community, and hope in a changed world.
Agreed. Definitely worth watching and thinking about.